Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
6:07, O'Connor and Company here on this, the 28th day of August. Good Lord. Labor Day weekend right ahead of us, and we're wrapping up a already very busy news week, and it's only Thursday. Coming up in 30 minutes, Rob O'Donnell, a former cop from the New York Police Department, homicide detective, will talk to us about the shooting in Minnesota. 7:05, Victoria Cobb to give you a preview of Fairfax County School Board meeting tonight. 7:35, James Galliano, former FBI agent, will also talk about the investigation into the school shooting. 8:05, KT McFarland, and then at 8:35, Chuck Thies, D.C. political analyst. It's Larry O'Connor. Bethany Mandel is here this morning. Young Bethany Mandel. Look at you all grown up and on the radio.
I love that you still call me young.
Well, you are.
I mean, I'm almost 40. How long can I milk this for?
Oh, keep milking it, Bethany. Bethany, by the way, is the proprietor of the Mom Wars. That is a Substack and a podcast. Make sure you check it out. She's been leading the Mom Wars in many respects, and it's always good content. So, as a mom, your heart must have sunk yesterday when you heard the news that there was a school shooting in Minnesota, specifically at a Catholic school, Annunciation Catholic School, where children were gunned down while they were literally praying in the pews at the Annunciation Catholic Church adjacent to the school. Absolutely heartbreaking. 2 children dead, multiple injuries. And right around noontime, 12:30, the news broke that the assailant was a person named Robert Westman, who now goes by the name of Robin Westman. And if we do refer to this person as Robin, it is because legally he did change his name to Robin. So don't think that we're being woke. We're just being accurate. It is his legal name. He changed his name to Robin because he was experiencing gender dysphoria. And in the state of Minnesota, as you can well imagine, there is a whole lot of encouragement for young teenagers who identify as the gender that they were not born. And Robert's parents were incredibly encouraging. There was no religious dogma and Bible thumping and screaming and no renting of the clothing and no yelling, no child of mine, no son of mine. No, he was encouraged. In fact, they facilitated the name change to Robin. They willingly and enthusiastically went through the medical procedures, pharmaceutical procedures. They were very pro Robin's transition. And, of course, we're always told, Bethany, that if parents do resist, if parents do put up a fight, if parents don't affirm their child's gender identity, as they like to say, then that puts the child in danger of great psychological trauma that could lead to self-harm and to their own death. But see, this sort of cuts against that because this person, Robin Westman, was completely encouraged and was embraced and was supported. And then he got an arsenal of weapons and shot down young children as they were praying in a church. So forgive me for being confused, but I don't know what we're supposed to as a society do about these things, except if you watch most of the broadcasting cable news stations, you ignore all of the details I just gave you, and you just focus on the fact that people can buy guns.
Yeah, so, in the wake of this, the mayor came out and said we need to protect trans kids. And one of the most famous, if not the most famous picture that we have of Peggy Flanagan, the lieutenant governor, is she's wearing a T-shirt that says "Protect Trans Kids," and the photo of her, I believe. Hold on, I'm not going to misspeak.
The shirt,
yes,
I know
it has a knife.
Shirt,
it has a knife. Yes,
it has a knife on it. Yeah,
yep.
and it's actually part of merchandise that is very popular in the violent radical trans community. They often have shirts that say "Protect Trans Kids," and then there's weapons connected to it. And one of them has the famous striped colored trans rights flag, but instead of stripes, they are AR-15s, and it says "Trans Rights or Else." And
you know who it wasn't protected? Were Catholic children in Minnesota.
Right.
There is a report on the National Catholic Register that is right on the top of the website right now because the Minnesota Catholic Conference, the public policy voice of the diocese in Minnesota, made requests to state officials, I'm quoting here, made requests to state officials to extend funds for security upgrades and emergency response funding to non-public schools in both 2022 and 2023. And that came on the heels of the school shootings at Covenant in Nashville from another trans psychotic activist who decided to target a faith-based school. And so, it's quite the picture. The mayor mocking the Catholic parents who were praying for their children who were just gunned down in the pews. That's the mayor. Lieutenant governor wearing a shirt with a knife on it that says protect trans kids. And Tim Walz, who ran for vice president, adamantly refusing to protect Catholic children.
Yeah. I think you summed it up nicely about the state of affairs in Minneapolis. Oh, and then there's this. This mass murderer had multiple manifestos, written and video manifestos, that were published online. One of them, according to John Lott, crimeresearch.org, John Lott, of course, is statistical analyst on crime data. And his organization is the Crime Prevention Resource Center. According to one of the written manifestos, this murderer, specifically said that he would prefer to target a gun-free zone because the victims are defenseless.
Yep.
Quoting the manifesto, that's why I and many others like schools so much. Oh, and he went the extra step further, not just a school, but a religious school, a faith-based school. And as you so aptly described it, these are people who, up until a minute and a half ago, as history goes, they would be diagnosed as having a mental disorder, gender dysphoria, that was treated with psychological therapies and trying to help. If you go to a psychologist, a child psychologist, or any other mental health professional right now in most states, and you have a child who is experiencing gender dysphoria through puberty, that psychologist or psychiatrist or mental health professional is prohibited by that state's law to help that child get through it and remain identified as their biological sex. They are prohibited from doing so.
They have to affirm.
Because they have now been told that this mental disorder is no longer a mental disorder.
So I think I've discovered one way that I am in favor of limiting access to guns. Let's go back to affirming that this is a mental illness and limit access to people who are experiencing gender dysphoria to guns.
There you go. There's some common sense gun control.
Common sense gun control right here.
Well, I mean, it's a great point to make because you have to look at the stats. This is an astounding revelation that was distributed yesterday having to do with mass shootings rates for the last decade. And listen, I am a father of 4 children. My 3 oldest went to a Catholic school. These could have been my kids, all right? I recognize that to reduce these victims and these beautiful little children who were literally praying to our Lord and worshiping at the moment that they became martyrs, I recognize that just reducing victims of shootings like this down to a statistic is in many ways cold and heartless. I get that. I know it's less than 24 hours. But we have to have, everyone yesterday was preaching to me that we have to have the hard conversations about this, but they only mean about limiting the Second Amendment. How about the hard conversation about trans and non-binary murderers in this country? Because if you look at mass shooting rates of the last 10 years, public incidents with 4 or more fatalities, the 2 top categories of assailants are trans non-binary biological males and trans non-binary biological females. And the last 2 most devastating school shootings, specifically targeting children, happened in Christian schools specifically.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this was in many ways a cookie cutter of Covenant, which, by the way, have we seen that manifesto? Or was it finally leaked?
It was leaked, but the police resisted, and I do believe it has now been finally officially released. Right. But the leak was validated. I believe it was Steven Crowder, actually, ironically, who engineered the leak. Yeah, and yes, they specifically targeted Christian children.
Yep.
I got so passionate about this that I stopped looking at the clock, and I apologize. I acknowledge it. We've got more. There's more. And the media reaction and the media coverage and the media covering up of this story. You have to hear it. We have to talk about it.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
23-year-old Robin Westman was able to leave what police called a video manifesto that they're now going through to try and establish motive. We've also been going through it and can tell you there are crude diagrams of the church. There are also photos of the weapons, and they include all sorts of writings, the names of past mass shooters, criticism of Israel, the name of President Trump written on the guns. There are
Aaron Katersky, ABC News, with one of the most duplicitous and deceitful news reports in the moments after the discovery of who this murderer was and what the manifesto said. Did you hear that? Criticism of Israel and the name of Donald Trump emblazoned on the weapons, on the magazines, to be specific. I've looked at the video. You want to know what it really said? It did have Donald Trump's name, but it said "Kill Donald Trump" on it.
And also unmentioned was the phrase 6 million wasn't enough.
6 million wasn't enough.
What do you
Burn
think that's
Israel.
Yep.
Israel must fall. Kill Trump now.
Yep.
Aaron Katersky says, oh, yeah, it's mentioned Donald Trump's name.
When they come for the Saturday people, they come for the Sunday people. It's all the same psychosis. And, I'm just going to say it. The woke Catholic people on the woke right, like Candace Owens, like Sohrab Ahmari, like what are they saying about this stuff today? You know what Candace is saying? That it's a false government flag.
Yeah, this will be a false flag.
That's how much they care about Catholicism.
By the IDF and Mossad. Yes, exactly. Let me give you a little bit more audio of people on the scene there, and we're going to get to more of the media coverage of this as well. But let's first start with the fifth grader. Right. Now, this young person, you know what? Let's pass over that, because this is the kid whose story seems to change every time, and I think that right. Well, no, this young child says that it's an amazing story about this boy who shielded him and covered his body, but then hasn't he changed his story a couple of times when he goes to the news reports? And I'm afraid that this may be, I don't know. Let's move on instead to the Minneapolis mayor. This is cut 6. Let's go to cut 6 here if we can, Mr. Michael.
I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity.
Shut the hell up. Shut the hell up. Let me just say, if you care about people who are suffering with what can only be a horrific situation where they literally believe that they were born in the wrong body, and they believe that the body parts that they have are a mistake, you are not showing them compassion by not actually trying to treat that problem and trying to help them. You're the one, Mr. Mayor, who are demonizing these people and setting them up for a horrific life by enabling the dysphoria and encouraging that dysphoria. And again, as you put it, these are teenagers who have a mental disorder of some sort, and the solution is to pump them full of mood-altering hormones that are not meant to be in their biological body.
Yeah. I like to sometimes script what he should have said, and what he should have said was, instead of mocking prayers, which is another thing he said later in the press conference, he should have said, I'm going to go to Mass and stand with my Catholic brothers and sisters today who have faced the most horrifying situation. And instead, we got the mocking. I want to hear from the Annunciation School principal, Matthew DeBoer, who should be mayor, in my opinion. He gave the most incredible speech at the press conference after the fact. And he said, in perfect, does he have media training? I don't know. Children were ducked down. Adults were protecting children. Older children were protecting younger children. It could have been significantly worse without their heroic action. This is a nightmare, but we call our staff the dream team, and we will recover from this, and we will rebuild from this. Within seconds of this situation beginning, our teachers were heroes. That's what you need to say in these moments.
Well, he also said, we lost 2 angels today, and I beg you, I ask you to please pray.
Yep.
These children were gunned down as they were praying. The principal begs us to pray. All people of faith immediately turn to prayer at moments like this. But the media, Dana Bash, cut 7, Dana Bash.
Forget about thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally praying when they were murdered through a church window.
Forget about thoughts and prayers. Jen Psaki, MSNBC former employee of Joe Biden at the White House, took to social media and said, prayer is not freaking enough. Prayer does not end school shootings. Prayers do not make parents feel safe sending their kids to school. Prayer does not bring these kids back. Enough with the thoughts and prayers. That's all they had, was to mock and demonize people who turn to their faith and turn to their creator at times like this. We've got more on this story, obviously a dominant one in the headlines. And coming up, we'll speak with NYPD officer, former Rob O'Donnell, to get his perspective. It's 6:24. All right, coming up, we continue to unpack what we know, what we don't know, and what we should be talking about with regard to this horrific shooting in Minnesota. We'll also cover some of the horrific things that media figures and politicians have said. Well, I don't know why a politician must rush to a camera to politicize moments like this, but they do. We'll talk about all of that and more coming up with Rob O'Donnell, former New York Police Department homicide detective, next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:37 on this Thursday morning. It's the 28th day of August, heading into your Labor Day weekend here, and we've got a lot of news to unpack on an already very busy week. Coming up at 7:05, we'll check in with Victoria Cobb. She's a mom activist in Fairfax County. She'll give us a preview of tonight's school board meeting. 7:35, James Galliano, former special agent, retired from the FBI, talk about the shooting in Minnesota yesterday. 8:05 gives us KT McFarland, and then at 8:35, Chuck Thies, D.C. political analyst, talk about Mayor Bowser admitting that, maybe more cops would actually help here in D.C. With regard to crime. Gee, what a couple of weeks we've had. It's Larry O'Connor with Bethany Mandel.
Good morning, Larry.
Good morning, Bethany. Bethany, of course, the proprietor of the Mom Wars podcast and Substack. Make sure you check that out. Speaking of cops, we've got Rob O'Donnell. He, of course, a retired police officer from the New York Police Department and now a radio talk show host in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Good morning, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Larry. Bethany.
Yeah, you, as usual, whenever a shooting incident or any other public crime or occurrence happens, you're always on top of it, and you've got great sources within the police department. Can you let us know basically sort of the tick-tock here on yesterday's shooting and what we know specifically about this murderer?
Well, let me start off why I was brought into the loop on this so soon. And my X account has over 20 million views on this because it was the first to break it. But local law enforcement, both on the federal and law enforcement level, reached out to me between a half an hour and an hour into this incident and said, listen, the powers that be are looking to focus on a narrative rather than the facts and the evidence. So we're going to point you in the right direction. We want you to run with it. We want you to get it out there because we trust you respecting the investigation, respecting the victims in this case, not putting too much out there, but putting enough to where people know what's going on, and it's harder to create a narrative that people don't know. So that's troubling. That's troubling at its core.
Let me pause for a second. These are people within the law enforcement chain of command who saw pretty quickly that instead of sort of communicating to the public the evidence that they've uncovered, instead, who was it? Do you know if it was a hierarchy at the police department, or was it pressure from the mayors and city council who were saying, all right, let's not focus on that, let's focus on this?
It was pressure from outside of law enforcement. Again, this was both on the federal level and local level that I got notified for. So, I was able to be pointed in a direction. I was able to get the information out there and put such out there. And if you look at my X account on this, I was very careful of what was put out there. I put pertinent facts without doing any damage further to the victims' families, because you don't want to just put the manifesto out there so people can read it that may have a victim involved in this. Sure. You don't want to put audio out there of this psychomaniac, because after what, there were 2 videos posted at the time this incident began by the suspect allegedly. One video was 11 minutes, 1 minute. One video was 20 minutes on his YouTube channel. And after watching 30 minutes of this individual go through several personalities, use demonic voices, actually flipped to a page where he had a drawing of the church, to where he kind of took his finger where he was going to enter the church and then stabbed the middle of the picture with a dagger and say, where I kill myself, and echo his own words. Just kind of shows the intent here. And then, the layout of the weapons, to where there were different things written on them. One of them were for the children. The other one said, kill Donald Trump. There was anti-Israel, anti-black, anti-Hispanic. Here's someone who's severely deranged. And I'd really start to focus on the family ecosphere around this individual, on how they missed what was going on here. Because one of the videos posted was from 4 years ago. There was only 5 videos on his YouTube channel. And one from 4 years ago where he simply reads the manual from a dryer, a home dryer next to your washing machine. But such in a demonic way, how your dryer can kill you. And this has been posted for 4 years. How a family member didn't see this, it was just beyond me.
So I agree with you that I'm always reticent to amplify these kinds of manifestos. But I think that there's some interesting and instructive stuff in here when you look at it through the prism of the fact that this person was severely mentally ill with, the woke mind virus, basically, but on steroids, because he was literally a crazy person. So he in this paragraph where he's talking to his mother and his father, he says, I feel I was raised to be a good person. I've kept these traits of empathy, self-sacrifice, and good character. This is part of the woke mind virus, in my opinion, that they think that how they are acting is empathetic, even when they are gunning down Catholic children. Like, this is how far it can go.
Yeah, no doubt. And because of some of the portions of the writings, there were 2 separate manifestos. One was the 4-page letter, basically an apology letter to his friends and family, where he does kind of get into some things. And then there was the diary, which had 40 or 60 pages of basically hieroglyphics or some kind of cryptic language that I don't think has been deciphered yet in some cases. And then blank pages to where he has the drawing. He had a listing of bands. He had a handwritten drawing of himself looking in his bathroom mirror, with the sink there, with soap dispenser on the sink, and a gun strapped to his back and a pistol on his hip, and he's looking in the mirror, and the devil is looking back at him. And this is a hand drawing. The diagram of the inside of the church shows that this was extensively pre-planned. The fact that the mother did work at this school, this church, and retired in 2021. The fact that this suspect graduated from this school in 2017. There was also some tells here that in 2020, when the mother, because he was a minor, a juvenile, legally changed his name from Robert to Robin, the father was listed as a non-applicant parent. So the father was not involved in this. So, he didn't bring out, he mentioned something with a family member by the name of T. And there is a Teresa that he said goodbye to and thanked at the end when he signed his letter. There was about 8 or 9 family members. And says, kind of get along with mom, let the past be the past and such like that. But just listening to the video, I've been doing this for 3 decades, and 30 minutes of listening to this individual with severe psychiatric problems, going through multiple personalities, multiple voices. At times it appeared he was maybe on drugs. He did mention that he abused his body with a vape and other substances. So what were they? But the mere fact that this went unnoticed from the people closest to him, especially since he was obviously endeared to them and in their letter, apologized to them saying, I don't blame you if you want to change your name. I think that's where this focus needs to go.
Rob, stay with us. We got more to ask you about this, especially this story within the police department, pressure from outside politicians to change the narrative and to basically misinform the public. I want to hear more about that, too. And you do afternoon drive, so I know you've got plenty of time. So Rob O'Donnell stays with us. We'll get back to him in a moment at 6:44.
Later this morning in the Chris Plante Show, D.C. grand jury refuses to indict a Democrat assaulting a federal agent with a sandwich. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
We continue now with Rob O'Donnell, who is a retired police officer and has become a law enforcement activist and advocate for many years. And because of that, Rob, you have sort of connections and sources in many police departments around the country, including Minnesota, Minneapolis, where you said yesterday they reached out to you, some of your sources and friends. Mm-hmm. And as you put it, that there was pressure to get a narrative out there that was somehow contrary to the evidence or in some way, sequestered evidence from the people in the wake of this shooting. Do you have more details about that?
Yeah, well, two different separate entities reached out to me. Again, a local level and a federal level. The local level was a senior officer, that's part of that department there, and the federal level was a member, one of the main federal agents that responded to this case, because again, this is an all hands on deck here. And within an hour, they just saw that certain things were being suppressed when they were coming out with information and discussing things among the investigative team that was there. Suggestions were being put in. Well, maybe that's not the case here. And instead of the evidence and following the facts, they felt the pressure from right away, from the outside sources, is what it was told to me. No one specific. I mean, the fact we all saw the press conference that was there. I mean, you have major mainstream media agencies that are refusing to say that this individual was transgender or anything like that. You have ABC News who's saying that. There was writings about Donald Trump, but not specifically that he wrote on a magazine, "Kill Donald Trump." So things like that, that's the narrative that's getting out there. So, they knew if I got this information and had it archived and the way I put things out there to where I respect the investigation, I respect the victims at this time because of what they're going through and not to put too much out there to further traumatize them, they felt safe to put me in the right direction to where I can get this information. So they know, the powers that be know that I have all the truth. So they have to kind of be wary about what they try to say it's not. And, 20 million views on X on those posts out there just shows that works.
Yeah. That's right.
Accountable.
Another reason to follow Rob O'Donnell on social media and keep up to date with things like this and his wonderful radio program that he does, by the way, as well. Rob, really fast, and I'm 30 seconds. You said something about federal pressure. Would that be from a FBI field office in that region?
No, actually, it was the federal authorities there that wanted them to reach out to me, but it was the powers that be more locally on the state level.
Forgive me. I thought that you said there was also pressure coming from federal. Oh, good. Excellent. Glad we cleared that up. Thank you, Rob. Hang in there, brother.
Well, federal being state, U.S. senators, members of Congress,
I
and
see.
such like that.
From the state, but federal folks who work in Washington
federal
on behalf of the state.
From the state.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob.
All
6:53.